Jumping into it a little bit, you'll see we've gone with a 90s theme, very Saved by the Bell, which I was really pleased with. And that's not just because we've got a fantastic designer. It's also because it's somewhat in kind of with this theme of your customers being your biggest pipeline source. The reason being, in the old days, if you will, customers were one of your biggest pipeline sources. How did people learn about your product? You made your customers successful and they talked about you. So it's kind of an old concept that's just coming back around. And we believe the moment it's coming back from both user desire, the desire to know what other people are using and being successful with, but also the technology change that's coming. At Commsor, we're really pushing this, but we believe this is just a part of go-to-network. Reason being, markets are getting saturated, acquisition costs are going up, ads are becoming less effective, cold calling is becoming less effective. And so using this relationship with networks that you've got around your business, they're there waiting for you to harness, and your customers are one of the most valuable parts of that. So our goal today is to help everyone at home figure out how they can use their customers to generate more pipeline. And we've got two fantastic panelists to help us with that discussion. So Karina, I'm going to introduce you, but I'm then going to give you a second as well at the end to add anything that I've missed as well, because there's always something else that's like, okay, didn't know you're up to that at the moment as well. So Karina, you've served as marketing leader in B2B SaaS for the last 13 years, specializing in building enterprise ABM programs to drive revenue. You're an award-winning account-based marketer and served as a strategic advisor for technology companies such as Navatic, which is a great company we've used, Postal, GTM Partners, and many more. And after this webinar, anyone at home that's looking for advice on how to launch or scale enterprise ABM, then Karina is definitely the person to reach out to. Karina, anything to add?
That you covered it perfectly. I've been in the B2B space for 13 years, building ABM programs from the ground up. Super excited to talk about how we've leveraged that from both the top of the funnel and bottom of the funnel perspective with customers. And then I think the one little tidbit I'd add is folks may know this about me, but in my spare time, I do aerial silks arts. So if you've ever been to Cirque du Soleil and you see those ribbon looking things hanging from the ceilings, if I'm not at my computer, I try to get up in the air and do that.
Don't know what happened there. Sorry, Gustavo. Thomas, yourself. So also 13 years working B2B SaaS, but on the customer success and sales roles. So together, actually, we perfectly cover all of the business commercial side of tech, which is perfect. You currently lead the Americas sales team at PlanHat, which I can personally vouch for being the best customer success platform out there. No bias there. I just believe that just because it's true. And you're based in Boston, dad of two, and always happy to connect with people about sales, customer success. Anything else we should be adding?
No, I think that was great. Yeah, that is me.
Perfect. So jumping straight into it then, like, how are you seeing the go-to-market landscape? How has it changed over the last few years as well? And what are you seeing as kind of the next wave? Jumping to you first, Karina.
Wow. Yeah. I think we're seeing that there's a lot of consolidation right now. I think, in the early, 2020s, people were just having tech debt overload. And now people are trying to find a way to be smarter and more efficient with where their employees are using tools and technology, data, et cetera. I also think that we're seeing a new wave of how we're going to be able to engage with our customers. So of course, we're still relying on in-person activities such as events and trade shows. Digital, of course, is always going to reign supreme. But with the ever-changing landscape, with things like AI and SEO not being as prominent likely in the future, I think marketers are going to have to be a little bit more strategic and thoughtful about how they go after their customers. And then finally, I think we're going to just continue to see acronyms like GTN and ABM and GTM just continue to evolve, and we'll keep changing the name of the game.
Yeah, makes perfect sense. Thomas, what are you seeing?
Yeah, I'd echo a lot of what Karina just said. I think from a new business perspective, buyers are more educated before the sales cycle ever begins, right? By the time someone writes into your website, generally speaking, they've read up on G2 reviews, they've spoken to a few of your customers already. And I think from a marketing perspective, or even like a cold outbound perspective, that makes things tougher. If you don't have those, warm inroads to prospects, it's hard to go knocking on their door as an unknown vendor and actually get a demo or a meeting. And I think it's just, the nature of, buying software has evolved over the years, and every company now has dozens and dozens of SaaS solutions. And so people have gotten savvier when it comes to doing their homework and their research ahead of ever reaching out to a company. So I think, yeah, today's topic, super relevant. It is not as easy to go out and just fire off a bunch of cold emails as it was 5 years ago. And that's why I think we've got a bunch of people tuning in.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with something you said there, in that your prospects, they do a lot more research than they used to. I think in the past, we're not even talking like the distant past, 5 years ago, they would be wanting to learn about the space and take demos. Now they want to learn all about the space, narrow it down to the 3 that they're interested in, and then they book the demos. And I've got multiple friends in sales, and it's always shocking when, you finally get a response to a cold email, and the person goes, "Oh yeah, no, we actually bought something 3 months ago." And it's always like, I've got friends at huge companies, like Gong and the likes, and they're like, "How are we not even in consideration in this deal? Like how?" And well, they did their own research. They narrowed down to their specific 3, and that's who they took to demo. So being able to influence that discovery period that the prospect does without you, that's where customers can be so, so valuable. So how have you guys approached using customers in the past? What are you doing at the moment? And again, what's changed then? Again, Karina, I'll go to you first.
Sure. I think most marketers kind of sleep on interacting with customers until it gets to that point where they have maybe like a 3-year case study to prove an ROI, build a webinar around it, et cetera. And I've always found that that's a really big mistake. I think that, to your point, most buyers have already determined who they're going to select, if not their top 3, at least who they definitely are going to select, before they ever raise their hands to reach out and speak to you. So it's so crucial that you are engaging with them throughout every touch point of the buyer's journey. So I think that one thing that I've looked to kind of unpack in organizations, especially those that are trying to go up market, is to kind of distill or take away the facade that we have in our sales process. So take references, for example. So often we already know that the vendor is curating exactly who they're going to want us to speak to, prepping them with what to say, giving them the script, if you will. So it doesn't feel as authentic and genuine. And buyers are much smarter and savvier. There's so many different communities out there that people can join and talk behind closed doors. So that's already happening. So I think a lot of times what I've tried to do is share with them that, hey, you know how you would buy a software. You would talk to your peers, people you trust. That's already happening. Let's create some systems that make it easier for our prospects to engage with our best customers. So one of the ways that we did that at Gong when we were trying to move up market was we actually engaged with our customers inside community, which was originally just reserved for customers. And we opened up a segment of that community to be able to be made available for people that were like late stage prospect. And we asked sales to just kind of be removed from the process, and marketing took that over. We invited them to the community. We made sure that there was a nice mix of customers and a nice mix of prospects. And we created this matching program actually through Commsor and now Matcha that connected a raving fan. And that could have been any seniority. We didn't even match by seniority. We wanted any raving fan, be that a sales manager to a chief revenue officer, to have the ability to connect with the buying committee with a late stage prospect. And it was just closed doors, completely removed. We gave some prompts that they could ask, questions about, like some low-hanging fruit questions, like what's the most utilized feature of Gong that you never would imagine would have been your most utilized feature. But we found that just the mere fact that we were offering an opportunity like that just built a lot of trust with these late stage prospects. They ended up coming back to us and saying, hey, some of my team used this. This was really helpful because they were very skeptical about a product such as like a Big Brother, as we were seeing at the time. And then they also just said, hey, for those that did it, it was really cool that you offered it because our competition wasn't doing anything like that. So I think finding ways to leverage your customers as you're the most strategic asset in your sales process is just a no-brainer and a win, and something that more companies should be betting on.
Yeah, a fantastic answer. Thomas, what would you add?
Yeah, I'm like taking notes here. That was brilliant. Introducing prospects to the customer community. Like I hadn't thought of that, but I think that's so smart. And I think that last thing you said really resonated, which is like being the vendor that is proactive about offering customer references, right? Like so often before I make a purchase, I'm going to ask at some point, or I'm going to do my own, tap my own network to see if I've got anyone out there. And so I think something that we really try to do even early in the sales process is like confidently go out and say, we're happy to connect them with a number of customers, right? Like not just the one curated super fan, but like we're happy to connect you with multiple customers that you can really get a feel for what working with us is like, and speak to someone about their experience. And if they could do it again, what would they do, and all those things. And I think if I'm, when I put myself in the shoes of the buyer, like I would want to do that. I would really appreciate that. If I was seriously thinking about technology and I'm looking at multiple vendors and one vendor offers that up and connects me with several of their customers, I'm gonna trust that vendor, right? I'm gonna feel really good about that. And I think that community example was just brilliant. But yeah, you got me thinking about so many topics here. So I'll try to. I don't want to be too long-winded, but I feel you brought up something about like marketing often waiting until they've seen tremendous value and they've been a customer for years. And I think a lot of AEs feel the same way. They're like, oh, well, this customer is like just onboarding. Like I couldn't ask them to be a reference just yet. But I actually think after you've done a software evaluation, sometimes that's when you're the best reference, because you still remember it. You still remember all the details, like why you didn't choose this vendor, why you chose that vendor. You were just in it. And you almost want to share the experience. Like you spent months evaluating tools. You kind of want to talk to somebody else about it, like a peer. And so I find that a lot of times, if they have a good sales experience that they purchased, like they're having a successful onboarding, that's when people are almost most willing. They almost want to talk about why they chose Plan Hat in my case. And I think that people often hesitate because they're like, oh, they're too new. They haven't seen enough ROI yet. But I'd argue that that's actually maybe the best time, because the decision's so recent and they're so excited about the solution, right? It's a good time to have somebody turn around and say, we just did this. Here's why we picked this vendor.
I would agree. It's super top of mind and it's fresh. And I think you can position it in a way that's more like a win-loss survey type of approach. So, hey, saw that you just signed up for our solution. Would love to get your feedback on how the sales process was. We're always looking to improve this for our future customers. What could we have done better? And then as you get through that interview, whether that be, hopefully, ideally, it's a face-to-face or Zoom to Zoom, you can get understanding of, hey, they actually are, to your point, Thomas, prime and ready. There's also ways to leverage them for things like live events. That could be a really, really exciting opportunity for some of these individuals. So many of the industries that we've been after at many brands in the kind of the more established industries, like take manufacturing, maybe even fintech, they're not always going to have these opportunities where they're invited to speak as a thought leader at either a webinar, a live event, an in-person event, et cetera. So even just offering something like that is a really great way to introduce them to what it's like to work with marketing, so that when they are 3 years in and have that hard ROI, it's going to be so much easier to ask for that case study.
Yeah, love it. I think I totally agree with what you're both saying. And I think that just post-purchase, like you said, Thomas, I mean, you both said it's perfect timing actually. And a lot of people shy away from it, but it's also the first moment where the customer can see whether the promise has been delivered. Like this customer, this company through the sales process is saying all the right things. Do they actually start delivering on it? Because that's what the prospect that hasn't bought yet is looking to learn. Like, look, you can say the nicest, most beautiful things in the sales process, but when I get handed over, is it true? Okay, let me put you in touch with a customer who's 1 month into onboarding, and they can tell you whether it's going as planned. I think what's nice there as well is no onboarding is ever perfect. So actually speaking to a customer that says, yeah, we actually had this problem 2 weeks in, but within 3 days, we'd found the solution together, and this is how we moved forward. Like, if the customer goes, everything's perfect, oh my God, it's best decision I've ever made, it will be more red flags. And you see that in some companies where they have like 2 people that will do all of their reference calls, and they just roll them out, does the reference call, roll them back in. And it's a script at a certain point, and it starts to lose impact. And I think competitors start to be able to say, oh, did you speak with John or Michael? Like, which of their 2 references did they use? So being able to use new people that haven't spoken to other prospects yet also has this feeling of like, my God, there's hundreds of companies that this business that's trying to sell to me could use as their references. That it's almost unlimited. In another week, another company could close and they could use them. So I think it's super, super insightful. Thomas, we're going to start with you on this one because of your experience in customer success and dealing with companies that are trying to scale customer success. Like, how can companies shift from being just sales driven to being more customer centric in their approach?
Oh, big question. First and foremost, like you said, it starts with onboarding, how you onboard, how you follow through post sale. But I think if you're not delivering an awesome customer experience and you're not delivering value, or at least, you're in this journey together with the customer trying to get to value, then it's very hard to do anything with your anything meaningful with your customers, right? And ahead of the webinar, I was thinking about it, like the type of product you're selling will dictate, how you do CS, right? Is it like a one-to-many sort of tech touch style? Because we've got a lot of SMB customers and it doesn't make sense to give each of them a dedicated account manager. And generally, I think if you're selling a solution that is low dollar value, it's hard to establish those like deep connections with your customer because you're just going to have a huge book, right? And so by nature, you're going to be a bit more transactional. I think if you are selling a high value product and one that takes a long time to implement, like you just have so many more interactions and so many more touch points with the customer to build the relationship. And I think, how do you become more customer centric? Like each one of those touch points is it's like a sales process, right? It's like, are you prepared? Do you show up? Are you focused on what the customer needs to achieve? How are you, working with and helping the customer? And then I think as it ties back to maybe your question in this webinar, I think too few CSMs, after they've spent, so many months getting to know these customers, often at times have gone on site, they're not thinking about, or maybe they're not incentivized, like, hey, Christian, I saw that you were connected with Corinna and you two worked together at Gong for many years. Like, I know my sales team's eager to talk to Gong. Like, would you be up for making an introduction? And I think, you could say that that's the fault of the company for not incentivizing that behavior. But I think if I'm a CSM and I own a book, like I want to do everything I can with my raving fan customers, right? Built this awesome relationship and delivered value to try to turn that into something else. Maybe it's with their own company in a new department or an upsell, but oftentimes it's an introduction, right? That's the hardest thing to get in sales is a warm introduction from a happy customer. And so I think if you can do that as a CSM, you're creating so much value for your company. If you are turning around and getting introduced to 2, 3, 4, warm intros from a happy customer to accounts that the sales team's been trying to crack that they've made no progress with, you're creating a lot of value as a CSM.
Love it. Spot on. Corinna, what would you add?
Yeah, I definitely echo what Thomas was saying. I think anytime that, just to like really simplify it, anytime you can make them the hero of the story versus the brand, just the better it's going to be. So there's so many different ways people can think about making them the star, the champion. Take customer advisory boards, for example. There's very few that actually are running them consistently or running them well even. And I think that having that opportunity for a key stakeholder or a power user to be on quarterly calls where they can give feedback on product, show and tell their own use cases, workflows, templates, et cetera, of what's working for them, gives them the opportunity to show off to their peers. And that's going to give them like lifelong opportunities to network. So that can build maybe, a roadmap for them for their next job or help them get a promotion. Think about doing external awards in your category. You can even think about leveraging that from a prospect perspective too. So I think that just making sure that when you're creating any piece of content or program, the customer is the highlight and the star of it, you're going to be really successful, and you're going to find that you're creating a lot of stickiness because you're building something that's a little bit more human and relationship oriented.
Love it. I mean, with that answer, we're actually going to jump forward and then come back because one of the questions I had was, why is trust so important in building pipeline and revenue and growing that? Of course, it relates to customers as well, but I'll open this and whoever wants to jump on it first, but kind of why does trust matter so much and how do you build trust kind of beyond what we just talked about?
Yeah, so ahead of the webinar, I was thinking about this as well, right? Especially in my current role, I'm not customer success. So I don't get to be on that journey of implementing the software and overcoming challenges and thinking through workarounds and, really seeing the customer ultimately like fulfill whatever they were trying to fulfill. So like, how do I stay in touch with customers? And I think it ultimately starts with like, you genuinely, to do this well, like you need to care about the problem that your technology solves, right? Like if you're not passionate, if you can't get behind, or like you wouldn't purchase the product yourself, you're never going to be able to establish, this sort of trust. So I think this is almost like career advice, but like you want to find yourself at a company where you really do believe in the product, you would purchase it yourself. Like it's very easy for you to get behind and, help customers. I think the second thing to that from a sales perspective is like a lot of AEs, once they've sold the deal, they don't stay in touch with the customer, which is such a mistake, right? Like you should, like you should join onboarding calls, you should join the 90-day check-in call. Like if you continue to show up and show that like you genuinely care, you sold this deal, you built this relationship pre-sale with the customer, and post-sale, you want to follow through. You want to make sure that it comes to life, and you want to be part of that journey with the product. I think the customer will realize like, hey, this person doesn't have to be here. They don't have to join this meeting. They didn't have to jump in on that email thread, but they care, right? Like they're showing me that beyond the deal that they sold, they genuinely care about my success as a customer. And I think when you do that, especially as a seller, you do build this genuine trust with the customer. It's like this person is going out of their way to make sure that I'm actually seeing success with their product. And I appreciate that because I know that my company, my sales team doesn't always do that, right? And so I think, I don't know if there are AEs on this call, but if you do that, if you go above and beyond and you stay in touch with the customer, you will develop this genuine relationship, and it's built on trust and actually caring about the customer. And once you have that, it's so much easier to say, would you mind being a reference, or would you make an introduction? And if you don't have that, it's never going to feel natural asking for an introduction. It's never going to feel, you're going to feel like you're asking for a huge favor if you're like, hey, would you mind speaking to this prospect? And when you do spend that time and you put the energy in post sale, it's just they're happy to help. They see that like you care about them and you've stayed on with the account to make sure that they succeeded.
Yeah, love it. So building trust, it's similar to relationships, right? It's turning up, being present, showing that like, look, I'm here. It wasn't just talk at the beginning. Like I'm going to keep being here. And yeah, I saw firsthand at Planet how well you did that. Like I've seen that. And then, you see this movement of, oh, wow, if we can just find when our customers move to another company, we can sell to them. Yeah, but if you've actually stayed in touch with them the whole time, they're going to tell you when they're changing company. They're going to bring you with, and they're never going to go to market and look at what else is out there. So that trust that you've been able to instill throughout, you can carry on. Karina, what would you add?
Yeah, I would say some of this actually goes back to the, responsibility of revenue leaders, because a lot of this kind of, I've seen the comments like sales for sales sake. I mean, that's spot on, Mac. And I think that's because that's how we're actually goaling these individuals, is their quota isn't tied to the livelihood of the contract or the customer. So if we can be smarter about how we're building and structuring these customer programs, and have the goals and OKRs, KPIs, what have you, not be tied to net new revenue every single time, then I think we will see actually a positive outcome for other metrics, such as reducing churn rate. And I think that was a big thing for us when we were building community at Gong, was we didn't start with that goal in mind. The goal in mind wasn't to close X number of net new business. The goal was to actually create a community for our customers to interact and learn from one another. And thankfully, that led into, some of these programs being still the highest programs and community that Gong has today. And I think I saw a Q&A asking what was the incentive for the late stage program that I talked about earlier at the top of the call. There really wasn't much of an incentive when we asked our customers to join this subset of the community that knew they were going to be interacting with late stage prospects. They really were eager to meet and network, and that was the benefit for them. So I think sometimes we forget that that's sometimes the end goal for our customers, is they just want the opportunity to show what they've done and learn from others. And so that just goes back to really effective networking and relationship building. We did have merch store credits, so they could have, unlimited access to essentially to some of the Gong merch, but very few even took us up on that. They just said, we're happy to be a part of this. We're happy to take this reference calls. And some of the actual late stage benefits were some of these individuals, not great for the customer accounts, but they did get offers from some of these other companies out of a program like that. So I think sometimes we overcomplicate things by making goals too self-serving internally. And that actually really does have an impact on how the market perceives you.
Yeah, I love that. And question I've got for you guys, and be as specific as possible, because I think with these sessions, when people join and they're looking to learn, I think what we've said has been super helpful. But what specific examples do you have from your careers where you've seen a customer directly impact an active deal?
Oh,
Like what?
Christian, this is like every week development, right? I think yeah, one thing that we've tried to do here is like we want the sales team to be less focused on their own sales methodology, like whether you know your team does MedPick or Bant, and more focused on the customer experience from the jump, right? Like from their very first interaction, from the very first time they speak to you, all the way through to purchase and post sale. And so I think pre-sale, if you're really trying to put yourself in the buyer's shoes, you're like, if I were them, what would I want? Like, what questions would I have? It's like, I'd want to get my hands on the product, or I'd want to speak to a customer. And so I think, again, I said this earlier, like we try to offer that early in the process. And sometimes people are like, hey, not yet, like, you know, still making a short list. But sometimes people are like, I'd actually love to do that. If you're serious, like I would love to talk to a customer. And I think we you know, we've got a way of doing it. We've got a system now so that we're not constantly going to the same people. But I think it's a really good sign when a customer is willing to speak on your behalf, right? Like you could say that should be a factor in your customer health score. Are they willing to be a reference? Are they happy to do it? And to Brenna's point, it shouldn't be because there's a reward. Then it makes the whole thing feel very transactional, right? And the way they show up to that reference call is going to be different. They're just going to want to try to get it done as quickly as possible so they can get their reward, whatever it might be. So it has to be, hey, I'm genuinely willing to do that because I've been very happy with the service, the sales experience and the post-sale experience. And I think all of that ultimately comes down to delivering, right? Pre-sale, post-sale, follow through, all those things. But yeah, I mean, I could give you so many examples of like we do this very often because we know that the buyers want to have that experience, and we're never there. Like it'd be very awkward if we run the Zoom. We just connect them, let them talk. A good reference should be honest about the things that have been tough, right? And I think that's what we tell people is like, you don't have to sell something here. Like this is just like you speaking to your honest experience with PlanHat, and that's what people want, right? They can tell when it's like, is this like a friend of Thomas's because they're like selling this product really hard. I think it's better when they show up and they're like, you know, here's what's been great. These were the challenging things. If I could do it all over again, this is what I do. People prefer that. They prefer that honesty. So I don't know if that answered your question. I don't know if that was specific enough, but every single week we're trying to connect some of our customers with active deals because we know how much the buyer appreciates it. And you know, post-sale, I think as long as the customer is like, hey, this has been an awesome experience, like I'm happy to take 30 minutes out of my day to speak on your behalf, then you're not, you know, you're not asking for too much. You're not, you know, I don't think you're doing anything that's like over the line.
No, I love that. And I also like I think something that's not discussed enough on the flip of all this is like a fast no is a good no. So actually, if the prospect speaks to a customer and the customer goes, this was a big blocker for us, if this is going to be a blocker for you, they might not be the right fit. Everyone actually should be very happy with that outcome because now the AE has learned much quicker, hey, we're not going to be able to make this customer successful. It's only bad if we sign them and figure that out later. So now, okay, we've had a great conversation there. We can park it at their next company. They know we're a really honest business that connects them with someone who's going to tell them the truth. But we've also not brought on a bad customer that's going to be bad for NRR. So I think, yeah, very cool that your specific example is something that you do multiple times a week because it's working at scale. Karina, yourself, specific examples.
Specific examples that have worked well for me personally as a buyer. Perfect.
But
Okay.
actually true, yeah. If it's buyer, then even better. Yeah, let's hear it.
Yeah, I think that might be interesting as perspective for the audience. I think we get trained a lot in sales to be hyper fixated on the key stakeholder, and if that key stakeholder is not present in the demos or several sales calls, you're kind of encouraged to go around. And I've often been a solo marketer in my career. So you go around me, you're going to the CEO. And that's obviously not what my CEO would prefer. They would prefer you to just do the process the way I've kind of instructed it to you. So I think there's an art to that. I think that there's a way to engage different stakeholders, your ideal stakeholder, in a way that is not as evasive or doesn't seem like you're going around their backs. And I think that's just appealing to them on a human level, appealing to their interests. I think I saw a question too that asked, like, how would you approach somebody that's introverted in the process? Maybe they're not as extroverted like we are in like marketing and sales tech. And I think that there's simple ways you can do that. So if you're getting them on the phone and they happen to share a little detail, like maybe like, hey, you're asking them how their day is. They're like, yep, I just got back from my daughter's dance recital. Oh, really? That's great. How old is she? Or just trying to pry little by little to get a little bit of information about their lives. I think most people, even introverts, I think that they're really appreciative when somebody takes the time to ask to get to know a little bit more about them. I think too, there's definitely industries where they're hyper regulated and they're up against crazy deadlines. And you, as a professional in that industry, know that, and you can be more focused on the goal at hand rather than trying to be really focused on, I don't know, competitive takedowns or whining and dining them at swoozy events. Some industries are going to be much more appreciative and actually can't even take some of your gifts, bribes, incentives, what have you. So I think that it's always about just appealing to their interests at a human level. And yeah, I would say for me, what's worked really well is when that does happen, when I do feel like I am the hero in their story and they feel like my success will be their success.
Super cool. Okay, love that. You can see we've just shared a poll as well about whether people are leveraging their customers. So it's always interesting to see what the community is saying. So do you think your team is currently doing a good job leveraging your customers to drive pipeline and revenue? Sometimes it's the big winner here. We occasionally leverage our customers. 58% of the audience are saying that. No, it's jumping around. More people are saying sometimes. No at about 14%. Yes, absolutely. We leverage our customers all the time at 25%. So cool. There are companies that have seen it working and gone, okay, how do we put more time, effort, money into this? But yeah, it's crazy to see that there's still some that are no, like front of house, back of house, completely separate things. I'm going to end that poll. Perfect. Okay, now, dear panelists, don't go anywhere yet. We're going to keep the conversation going. We want to get your thoughts on what's coming up shortly. But I did say that kind of go-to-network is our big belief at Commsor, and we see a big part of that as helping you leverage your customers and drive revenue. And I also said that the 90s theme wasn't over. So before, Thomas and Karina, you've not seen this, have you? It's fantastic. Before I show you a little bit more about what we've been doing at Commsor, let me show you the product release video, which I think will blow your mind.
Let's do it.
Okay, do you see, wait, I know Christian?
I do.
Okay, now let's hope the sound goes through as well.
Christian, I think the sound is not working, so you're gonna have to share with sound.
How do I do that? I'm so sorry. Share sound. Okay, phew.
I'm really interested in this product, but the only social proof is G2 reviews and case studies from like 6+ months ago. Let me check out a competitor, I guess. Wait, I can speak to someone actually using the product? I know Christian, and I trust him. If he likes it, I'm so down.
If I start clicking around on a product website, I just want to hear some real reviews for once. Wait, what's this? I can talk to people that I actually know that use this AI Dino suit? Wow! With Commsor Connect, I can talk to people I know and trust. Thanks, Commsor Connect, for being my special friend.
That man you see in I want to be very clear here. The man you see in the dinosaur outfit is an employee of Commsor, Ben. He's in the chat, so if you want to give him some love, please do. That man was in the Marine Corps. Can you imagine him in basic training, thinking that this would be the future of his career?
He's made it.
This is it.
He's officially made it.
We joke at work, like, what do his children think that he does for a job? If they walk in the office and he's doing that, they're like, I can't wait to have a job like Daddy. This is like, tech companies are the best. Okay, so why did we show you that? As I mentioned, kind of go-to-network is what we are all about at Commsor, and a big part of that is leveraging customers, and that's what this topic has been about today. So we've actually built something that's here to help you do that. So what you're looking at now is Commsor Connect. So we're on the Commsor website, and we talked about how a lot of people are doing their research before they actually book a demo. So maybe I'm not yet ready to book a demo, and as we discussed with Thomas, like, I'd actually like to speak to someone who's already using the product. Well, you can see bottom left with Commsor Connect, connect with the Commsor user you already know. So I say, yes, let's do it. And then I put in my email address and my LinkedIn profile, which, one moment, as I copy it, I have to do this in incognito so that it doesn't just automatically log me in. And you'll see at the bottom what we're talking about is we check which Commsor users that you already know. So when you're using Commsor as a marketing team, you can put your happy customers into it, which means that when a prospect hits your website, they're able to go, okay, I want to see who I know that's already using this product. They connect their LinkedIn with a couple of clicks, and then we match them with who they're already connected with in LinkedIn. So now sign in. So I've worked in cybersecurity, so of course I have 2Password, 2FA, all that jazz. Ooh, sorry, fast fingers.
And while Christian is logging in, there was 3 unanswered questions from the audience directed towards Karina and Thomas. If you two want to just quickly take a look at those and maybe give your best shot at a quick answer.
Sure. Carrie had a good question. What are some earlier stage ways that companies can leverage customers? In other words, during the research evaluation stage in the buying process? Great question. I think one way that we did, so if we had a target account of about 50 must-win accounts in the enterprise space, and we were knocking down doors, trying everything you can think of, we were not getting anywhere. So we started to do the unscalable, which is really start to understand their personality, what is interesting to them. And we actually found out that they were actually really interested in like a big bulk of them in women in revenue. And thankfully, we actually had Katrina on the call too. She was part of the Women in Revenue meetup at Gong. And it was completely disconnected. You didn't have to be a customer of Gong, you could join, but we just started to leverage their interests and invite them to be guest speakers for things and opportunities that we had. So I would say that guest speaking opportunities, whether that's webinars, live events, maybe it's, more intimate meetups. I think that's a really, really great way to get them to start interacting with your customers, and you'll find that your customers end up doing the best selling for you.
I was starting to answer, Sam, your question there. I'll type it out, but yeah, 100%. Like NRR is for sure the metric the customer success team should be measured on. If they're for some reason only assessed on net new revenue, I think that's that'd be a major problem, right? NRR takes in consideration churn and contraction on accounts, and at the end of the day, that's arguably more important for the CS team to own than anything else. What was the other question here? Muhammad, I say, how do you do outreach? What's the best way to talk to ideal prospects? I mean, there is the good old-fashioned way of shoot them an email, give them a pitch, add them on LinkedIn, give them a phone call. But I do think what we're talking about here, if you've got a network and you have connections that you can tap into, or you have customers that are connected, I think that's always going to be a better starting position, right? Than just totally cold outreach from an unknown entity. So Yeah, I think if you can leverage, at a very early stage, that might be difficult. But as the company gets bigger, if you can leverage your current customer base to get in the door with new opportunities, that's going to be highly effective compared to the old-fashioned way.
And that is the perfect time for me to jump back in, because that is exactly what we can help you do. So thank you, Thomas, completely accidentally by setting that up. So I've logged into my LinkedIn, and it's then been able to show me people that are in my network that are already using Commsor and that are happy to share their experience with me. So I know Mac from my time working with him. Click on that, put in what email address I'd like the response to go back to. But I've got a pre-written email here that I, of course, can change, asking him, what are his thoughts? Would he be willing to have a call to share his experience with me? So when I send that message, I've now gone from a prospect on the website to who maybe wasn't yet ready to book a demo, through to now getting the warmest introduction possible to the product by speaking to a happy customer. But we don't just stop there, because what you can also do is create those targeted custom links. So I could take a prospect's LinkedIn profile that hasn't been getting back to me, put it into Commsor, and then create a link that shows them, when they then click on it, who they know that is already using our product, which means that, of course, I can then send it to them, where they then enter their email address to verify. And based on that, it means I can include it in an outbound email. So, hey, Karina, thanks for signing up to our webinar series. If you would like to speak with one of our sales reps, happy to set you up with a demo. But actually, if you're still just looking to do research, click here and you can just speak with one of our customers. So really hands off, and just giving them a way to get that warm introduction to someone they already know, who can give them insights. And where this gets really, really cool for all the marketeers and salespeople here, we actually can give you the insight on the back end. Who's connected their LinkedIn on the website? Who's followed the link? Who did they match with? Did they send a message? So you're taking all of these people who are still doing that initial research and finding out that they're potentially now entering that buying cycle. There's loads more we can do as well, but this is Commsor Connect, helping you leverage your customers to turn your prospects into customers even faster. What's really cool about this is deals that have a customer start them and warm them up, close faster for higher revenue, less negotiation. And what I love about this with my customer success background is both the original customer and the new customer stay longer. Referring someone has this effect where you go, yeah, this product is really working for me, and you want to stay longer as well. I'm sure we got some questions in the chat. Karina, Thomas, any questions as well?
Yeah, I'll throw a similar question that I got in the chat. How do you incentivize or engage or recommend to Commsor customers that they should approach who that kind of best fit customer list should be? And especially thinking about some of the large organizations, how do you think about compliancy and privacy from that perspective?
Super good questions. So everyone's data is their own, so it's fully private. What I really like about this as well is you can only be matched with someone that's already in your LinkedIn network. So we're not just putting you out into the world. It's actually, by opting in, you're saying, yes, I'm happy to speak with people that are interested. But the threshold that's already created as well is that they need to be in my network. So you are your own gatekeeper. What I love about that as well, at this early stage when I'm looking, and you can use this deep into deals as well, but often I don't need like a VP. So in a reference call, I'm looking for someone senior. Even if I'm senior in the buying process at the beginning, if I could speak to an end user, that's incredibly valuable. As a buyer, one of my concerns is adoption. So at this point, even early on, you could actually have one of your large accounts, maybe have five to 10, who knows, of their end users that love you, be happy customers with inside Commsor that can be matched with. So it doesn't just need to be one person from an account. If you've got 5 or 6, maybe it's a team of CSMs that absolutely adore Plan Hat, and you're like, great, if anyone match with them, and I can see they all go to the conferences, they all go to the networks, they're going to be really well connected. So rewarding, people do it because they want to speak with people that they already know about what they're using. You don't have to be super senior. And because it's self-selective and the gatekeeper is you, the privacy of the data is sorted already. And now it's up to you who you want to speak with.
Christian, I do have a question thinking about it. What is like the upfront work required? Like if I'm the CMO bringing this on, like presumably I have to have good data on like who these contacts are, but then like, am I having to like go out and identify their LinkedIn profiles? Like what's required to get this thing set up?
Great question. Invite via email. You can also share a link that they click and then sign up, and you can also upload CSV. So if you're a big company and you know you've got 150 people that are super eager to do this, you can of course put that straight through. So this is why working with CS teams makes a lot of sense. Working with the marketing team, like who's already done a case study with us in the last 6 months. Great. Send them an email saying, look, you're already willing to put your name and face on our website. Would you be willing to speak with people that you are already connected with on LinkedIn about why this works? Well, people are probably already reaching out to them on LinkedIn anyway. At least now this way, it's set up that it's people that they're already saying, yes, this person's in my network. So really straightforward to get set up. The widget to install it on your website is about 10 lines of code. You upload the image, pick the colors, and then you can even have call to action buttons after they've gone through the process as well. If you want to direct them to sign up for your newsletter, whatever it may be, all super quick to set up.
Very cool. All right.
Oh, and we've got the next poll. Would you like a personalized demo of Connect? Yes, no, maybe. Yes, straight out the gate. Lovely. Karina and Thomas, we're nearing the end. I always like to ask, what's the key takeaway that you want the people at home to take from this session? We've discussed a lot, and it may even be something that maybe we've circled, but we've not really put our finger on. Like, what's the one key thing that when they walk away from this session, they take away?
All right, yeah, I'm happy to start. I think if you want to use your customers to generate more pipeline, like you have to be a customer-centric company. Like you've got to actually follow through on the promises, deliver value, have a strong CS team. I think if that's not in place, then like you could you'd spend a lot of time marketing to your customers, but you need to have a really solid customer experience if you're going to capitalize on your current customer base. So I'll leave it there. You know, good CS.
Plus one to that, I think too, if you can get your organization to rally around, a key KPI for the year, something everyone's marching towards in every revenue department, marketing, sales, customer success, product, I think even too, if they're all rallying towards that one goal, you've almost given the customers multiple stakeholders across your organization that are now kind of dependent on fostering that relationship. Maybe that's showing up on a customer's LinkedIn post. Maybe that's joining a call and giving them a very detailed QBR. Maybe that's assigning them an executive stakeholder internally at your account that they can kind of depend on. But yeah, I think making sure that your organization is rallying around that, like a rally cry for the year, quarter, et cetera, and that you have multiple departments that are all buying into that as a key metric to track, then you can and probably will find that you're going to have much better outcomes.
Love it. And please, thank you, polls closed. Please, some absolute self-promotion from the two of you. Thanks so much for being a part of this. Where can they find you? How can you help them? Karina, you go first.
Sure. Well, thank you so much for having us on here. This has been great. I could chat about customers all day long. I'm absolutely obsessed with their experience, and I'm so glad that it's becoming more of a trend. I'm on LinkedIn. It's the only social media platform you can find me on, so please feel free to reach out. It's Karina Owens, Corrina. Would love to chat.
Well, Karina, we have a number of things in common. 13 years in SaaS. I also have no social media outside of LinkedIn, like have slowly gotten myself off of all those things. But yeah, my name's pretty unique. If you search that on LinkedIn, I am the only one that will show up. And I see I've already got a few connection requests. I assume that's people on the call here. Happy to connect, discuss customer success, sales, SaaS, and anything really. PlanHat. If you go to planhat.com, you can learn all about what we do. We're a customer platform. We've touched on it a few times throughout the call, but of course, for the folks that are working in account management or CS, I'd be more than happy to connect and share more on what we do and put you in touch with a number of PlanHat customers, of course. So yeah, Christian, appreciate the invite. It's been awesome getting to speak here. And Brittany, I'll hit you up when I'm down in Atlanta. Maybe we can get coffee.
Let's do it.
Perfect. Thank you guys so much for joining. Thank you everyone for joining at home as well. As you've seen, we've got Commsor Connect to help you connect prospects and customers. We also have Commsor Intelligence that allows you to use your network to get warm introductions to those key accounts. So if you've got any questions around that, feel free to get in touch. But thank you all. I'll give you back a little bit of time. Maybe you can get a tea or a coffee before your next meeting. Have a lovely rest of the week. Now, just wave goodbye, everyone. Katrina, you can end the call whenever you want.